So thank you, Indrek, and I'm happy to be here. So every time I visit Tallinn, I'm happy. The first time it was 1982 when we opened a show concerning nature photographing in Finland, and it was a little different time, but at that time as well we had interesting discussion. So my main message is that you can't copy the happiness from one city to another. So to speak about experience in Helsinki and Vantaa, you have to remember that the history and circumstances, environment, even people are a little different one, and you have to have different tools. But anyhow, I will tell stories about cooperation on administrative level, on metropolitan level. I will tell about how you can guide through strong land ownership in Helsinki, the development of the city, and how in Vantaa, which is a new town in Finnish scale, you have to trust on more for master planning and participation and cooperation between landowners, private people and neighborhood organizations. So they are my main messages. The MAL 2019, it is a shortage about words land use, housing and transport for Helsinki metropolitan region, and the history of that work is, you can say it is at least 20 years, so even you can say that it's 40 years history. So nothing happens in a short period. But that planning and an agreement, there is an agreement at the end of the day between 14 municipalities and the national government, how to develop Helsinki metropolitan area. It has shown to be quite successful, and people and organizations are happy with that procedure. So now existing MAL project, there are some objectives, like nowadays it's very natural that low emission, attractive, vibrant and healthy cities and healthy areas are the main ideas. But at the same time we have made a plan, land use plan. It is not a legal plan, but it is a common show from those plans made by municipalities and cities within that area. And also that tries to target those new development areas along good railway and public transport corridors. One major question for Helsinki metropolitan area, like it is in Tallinn, is housing, and especially affordable housing. And interesting to say is that especially the housing issue and this kind of cooperation between cities and the national government has been promoted especially by the Helsinki Chamber of Commerce. So to open opportunities for affordable housing is one of the key issues as well for our business society. And in very short, I would say that the main idea is that we will find enough places for housing in general, but then for every city, every municipality will carry as well the part of affordable housing, so that they will develop areas where you can realize those subsidized housing. It is for the total area, it is 20, but especially for capital area, it means cities Helsinki, Espoo, Vantaa. It means that 30% of all new development will be affordable, subsidized partly by the state, but as well by the cities when we lease the land for those reasons. So that has been one part of the successful story. Not always all municipalities have been very happy for that question, but another side, there has been a carrot side. So as well we have agreed about the major transport, especially public transport investments for the region, and the state has subsidized more or less half that money to realize those projects. So carrot has been the infrastructure investment, and the stick has been that you have to realize affordable housing at the same time. And at the end of the day, now we have done that at least 4 times for next 4 years, and now existing agreement with the national government is for 12 years ahead. Of course, the first 4 years are more realistic ones, and then it is a little more vision. But anyhow, that tool for Helsinki metropolitan area to open up those questions for affordable housing and transport, we feel in general that has been quite successful way of cooperation. And it is officially just a voluntary agreement. There is no legislation behind that scope. So now to the next part of strong land ownership of city of Helsinki. 2/3 of all land is owned by the city, and traditionally, especially during 1920s, 1930s, Helsinki city bought big parts of its territory to the hands of Helsinki city, and it gives, of course, totally different opportunity to guide the development in that city. You will see now those project areas for Helsinki city during last 10 years, and one part of that story is that when you own your land, you can quite well plan and be sure that all those investments will be for use. So you can, before building and realizing housing, you can start working for infrastructure, schools, and etc., kindergartens, and you know that will be realized because there is a need for new housing, but as well the city is leasing that land. So that is, of course, one part of the story. But about happy city, I would say that when you are visiting Helsinki nowadays, and maybe you remember the old days, especially the area around the city hall has been changed a lot. It was a saying by Mayor Jussi Pajunen some years ago that Helsinki will have to be fun and functional, and the fun part is more or less around city hall and let's say classical center of Helsinki. There are some new investments as well, like Helsinki Central Library, which is realized already. This is still a plan, but you will see the plan, but the real case is very much like it is. And now we are once again speaking about new museum and new how to make livable the area between Olympic Harbour and the City Hall. That has been dealt many times. There has been a discussion about Guggenheim Museum, but it was postponed, and now there is a new idea to make, together with the national government, a museum of Finnish design and architecture, and I guess that will be realized together with developer, and the competition is going on just now. But so new investments, but as well to change the idea of the classical Helsinki city, like you have done here in historical center of Tallinn, that it has been the main tool to make Helsinki happier and more interesting especially for tourists and visitors. But for Helsinki, the major change in Helsinki structure, it started 1980s when they decided at that time that we will close some old harbor areas like West Harbor, Fish Harbor, Kruunuvuorenranta, and at the same time we do not need so much land anymore for the railroad hub which connected those old harbors, that hub of central Pasila. And once again, the land was owned partly by the city, harbors mostly in Finnish scale, Finnish way of ownership, and central Pasila was owned by the national government. But there was a deal with national government and Helsinki city, and now we have realized the central Pasila commercial hub, which is already in function, that Tripla Center, and we have had competition for those skyscrapers around it, but they are not yet realized, and there are some, as always, some, I guess, economic difficulties between the quality and the reality, especially for those skyscrapers, but after some years we will see them as well realized. All the rest around central Pasila is going as planned. So all who will visit Helsinki from Tallinn by ferry know the West Harbor area, and you can realize how that has been developed. It started during my time as a deputy mayor, 2008, little by little, and now summer 2020, the whole area was almost in a it was realized at least by half, and there will be a continuing struggle between the harbor still and the housing. I'm a little sorry about that, but it is reality. I feel that little by little Helsinki city will give more room for those connections from Vuosaari and try to promote them, but as long as ferries from West Harbor will act to Tallinn and back, of course some lorries are seen in that area, and there will be discussion about how transport and lorries fit for that kind of quite dense urban housing area. But the reality and realization has been done with quite a high standard, and I'm happy with that area in general. Another area is Kalasatama Fish Harbor, where we have already realized some skyscrapers by SRV, and the center around the metro station is developed in a good way as well, the housing part of that. And there was the same story that the city owned the land and gave by plot, block by block to private firms, leased the land, and now it is realized more or less half of the area has been realized. And this was fish harbor like it was 1 year ago, and already 6,500 people. And the last area harbor, which I will describe and started during my time between 2008-2014, was Kruununvuorenranta, which was old oil harbor, and now as well it is in a good run to realization. And especially the one idea for that area, if West Harbor idea is harbor and connections to Tallinn, Fish Harbor is around the metro station and old industrial part of Helsinki, and the Kruununvuorenranta idea is light and different kind of lightings which has been realized during the realization of that area, and as well some new architecture. And the fourth question, which has been debated a lot but has been decided many times by the city council, is that the old airport area Malmi will be turned into new neighborhood of Helsinki, where there will be new housing and as well some green areas. And the realization of that area is just on the point to start, and still it is debated, but let's say I do not see any opportunities to turn back with the development of that area. So those who are keen to use airplanes, they have to find a new place, especially those private connections somewhere outside the Helsinki area. Some, of course, will use our airport in Vantaa. Vantaa is a new town, as I described, quite a rural one. Even it is older than Helsinki. It was first mentioned by Padaste Monastery 1351, if I remember right. The Helsinki and especially the river Vantaa was mentioned, and that monastery owned the fish and salmon, especially from that river, by the letter of the Swedish king. But anyhow, Vantaa area has been a rural area quite a long time, and our biggest urbanization wave at the end of 1960s and early 70s, it meant that Vantaa as well grew up for a city and for a more modern city, but still linked in many ways to Helsinki as a core city. But nowadays Vantaa has its own character, and especially the accessibility of a city in many ways, by air, by train, by car, is the best in Finland. And it means that Vantaa has been growing last 10 years the most in Finland and in relation, and sometimes even in absolute figures. And for Vantaa, how we guide the development, because the city of Vantaa, especially in late 1960s, didn't own the land in big portions. So it meant that we had to make agreements between landowners, but at the same time we used the master plan technique as much as possible, and we convinced those private actors as well to follow the master plan, even it is of course legally binding, but anyhow that the idea behind the master plan is common for everybody. And the now existing master plan is made. There are three themes, three levels of themes: international airport city, regional mass transport city, public transport city, but as well local human city. So we feel that city of Vantaa, it doesn't need to be the better than Helsinki. It can be in cooperation with Helsinki, but it is good place to live and as well a good place to work within the Helsinki metropolitan area. And one part which is now under development is Aviapolis, which is neighborhood and area which is just in the middle of city of Vantaa, and where as well Helsinki-Vantaa airport exists. And long time people and council members for the city of Vantaa, they thought that that area splits somehow the whole city, and it is something which there are only problems, not any solutions. But we turned that idea just upside down, and we noticed that the airport area can be a source. Let's take some pictures. Down, back, now. Airport city can, there are area for development even very close to airport, because the noise curves and noise is not so bad within that area which you see from that map, which is only 1 kilometer from terminal. And now, let's say, the biggest new construction and development will happen within that area, Aviapolis area. Of course, the recovery from Corona time is difficult, and especially it has tackled quite heavily our hotel and facilities and some other facilities. But there are many plans to be realized, and I'm very optimistic about that development. And another investment which will change Vantaa, especially transport, will be that there will be first regional light rail for Vantaa, which will connect airport with those eastern suburbs which have some challenges. So we have said that Vantaa light rail is as well the biggest investment against segregation. So people can use that easily and can reach working place and as well services easier. And that corridor will be the next growing center of Vantaa. And there has been, of course, discussion, but the city council has voted for the light rail. And the last point which I want to mention, that we have as well another kind of strategy roadmap for resource wisdom. It is connected with the circular economy and that kind of ideas. And I really congratulate the city of Tallinn for the Green City of Europe title, and I'm sure that you are realizing the same ideas like we are doing in Vantaa. No emission, no waste, no overconsumption, that kind of ideas. And we are sure that city of Vantaa will be carbon neutral 2030. That is big project, especially with our own energy company, Vantaa Energy. But the way is well ahead. So that was stories about regional cooperation, Helsinki with strong land ownership, and Vantaa with more participation with business society and people together. But I hope you got some ideas for this seminar and at least a message from Finland. Thank you.